It's the Molly Dolly Show.
Hello there, girls and boys. My name's Carmen and I'm the author of this brand new book called Molly's Big Decision. Would you like to meet Molly? Here she is. Hello, Molly. Hello, Carmen. Would you like to say hello to the girls and boys? Hello, girls and boys. So what have you been up to today? Nothing much. Oh, I'm sure you've done something. Well, I cleaned my teeth this morning after breakfast, but since then I've been bored out of my brain. Well, I've got a good idea. How about we read the first chapter of your book to all the girls and boys out there? Is that a good idea? Yes, I like that idea. And the girls and boys can hear my story. Yes, they can hear your story. Now, how about I sit you up on the back of the chair here. Is that okay? So that I've got my hands to read the book. Yes, Carmen, that's okay. All right. Sit you up there so we can start reading Molly's story. Are you ready? It's still there. An excited gasp escaped Molly's lips and a smile broke across her face. She pressed her nose against the icy cold window. If you could see what she could see, it would take your breath away too. Perched high on a hill not too far away was the most magnificent palace. A cone-shaped golden spire glistened on each tower. Perfectly kept gardens and neatly trimmed hedges surrounded its four sides. Behind the palace, wide clouds puffed their way slowly across the big blue sky. Molly, what are you looking at? Suzie asked from her bed. Oh my, Molly exclaimed without turning to look at her roommate. Suzie hopped out of bed and scooted over to the window. Molly, it's amazing. I know, right? I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw a bright blue glow in the room. I crept over to the window and there it was. It's beautiful, Suzie sighed. Sure is, Molly agreed. Where do you think it came from? I don't know. I wonder who lives in there. A king or a queen, maybe? Oh my goodness, Suzie, what's a palace doing in our village? I wonder if anybody else has seen it. Molly wondered. Do you think we could go there and visit? No, we'd never be allowed to go to visit. Suzie, my father used to tell me a bedtime story about a magical palace that travelled to different villages all across the country. At night, the palace glowed like a jewel, brightly lit by blue and emerald coloured lights. That's exactly what this palace looked like in the middle of the night. Molly paused as a new thought crept into her mind. She whispered to Suzie, "What if it wasn't just a bedtime story? What if it was all true?" The question hung in the air as the girls started to daydream. I wish I could see inside that palace, they each thought. The sun sparkled against the palace window and reflected onto Molly's young face and curly brown hair. She turned her head slightly and closed her eyes to fully absorb the sun's warmth. It was such an amazing sight. She wanted this beautiful moment to last forever. It had been a very long time since she'd felt this happy. You see, Molly lived in the village orphanage with other boys and girls who, like her, had no parents. Her mother and father had died in a car accident when she was 5. She'd been hurt as well in the accident, but her broken leg hadn't hurt nearly as much as her broken heart, which still ached. Not a day went past when she didn't miss her mother and father. Downstairs, a gong banged loudly. This meant it was time for all the children to start their morning chores. Both girls quickly dressed for the day. Molly and Suzie hurried off down the hallway. They chatted excitedly about the mysterious palace. Mr and Mrs Furrows, who ran the orphanage, would be waiting for them in the dining room downstairs. At least that's what they thought. Mr Furrows, suddenly stepped out from a room into the hallway and blocked their way. He glared at the girls. "Stop running and be quiet." Molly and Suzie started to giggle. They were in too good a mood to be frightened by him today. Mr. Furrows walked towards them, pointed his finger and said in a loud voice, "I said be quiet now," he yelled. His hand shook with anger. Both girls jumped with fright and tried hard not to giggle. They looked down at the floorboards. "This is your first warning. Disobey me again and you'll both be locked in the basement for the rest of the day. Do you understand?" He stomped his foot down hard, so hard that a nail popped out of the floorboard. It flipped up behind him and bonked him on the head. He didn't know what had hit him. The girls watched him fall flat on his face with a thud. "Quick, let's get out of here," Suzie said to Molly, grabbing her hand. They ran and laughed their way to the kitchen. Cook Annie greeted them with a silent nod and started issuing orders. "Do this, don't do that." Molly was so tired of being bossed around every day by cranky grown-ups. Mr and Mrs Furrows were not nearly as kind as Molly's parents. In fact, they were the dead opposite of kind. They were mean and horrible. They often yelled at the children and demanded strict obedience, as we've just seen. A thick leather belt hung in the dining room as a constant reminder of the rule: if you're disobedient, you will be punished. A few of the children knew from first-hand experience that the punishment included the belt. But I need to tell you, this didn't happen very often. Why? Well, strangely, the belt often disappeared. Mr and Mrs Furrows never seemed to work out why. They didn't realise that the children took turns to make sure the belt disappeared from its usual spot. Besides helping out in the kitchen for breakfast every morning, one of Molly's daily chores was to collect the mail. On weekdays, she would wait in the foyer for the postman to arrive. Letters and parcels were pushed through a slot in the door and would fall onto the floor. Molly's job was to pick them up and take them straight to Mrs Furrows in her office. Molly found this task difficult for two reasons. Firstly, sometimes the postman was late and she would have to wait around for up to an hour. Molly hated waiting. Secondly, the floor in the foyer was made of cold stone tiles and she didn't own any shoes. Her feet felt like they were frozen after 10 minutes of standing on the tiles, never mind 1 hour. The nasty Mr and Mrs Furrows kept promising Molly that one day they'd give her some hand-me-down shoes, but that day had never arrived and she'd given up hope. However, what Molly didn't realise was that a special day lay just around the corner. It would change her life forever. Inside the magnificent palace, a kind and powerful king walked into his library. He carefully removed a large, heavy book from the bookcase and gently placed it onto a book stand. The king bent forward and blew lightly onto the book. As he stood up straight, the book magically came to life. Tiny sparks of glitter shimmered in the air. The front cover opened wide and one by one the gilded pages started to flutter and turn. They turned quickly for a time, then finally slowed to a stop. A brilliant blue light suddenly glowed from the book and started to swirl all around the room. Some of the words on the page changed their colour from black to blue. The light gave them life. The king smiled as he read the blue words and said aloud, "It's time." Wow, Molly, what do you think of that? That's pretty good, wasn't it? And you know what's going to happen next, but the girls and boys don't know what's going to happen next, do they? No, they don't. So, Molly, I've been thinking about what are you going to do tomorrow? I don't know. I'll just get bored again. No, what about, I've got a good idea. What about if you build a cubby house? Oh yeah, I love building cubby houses, and it's something you can do when it's raining even. So it doesn't even need to be sunny outside and you can build a cubby house. Do you want to do that tomorrow? That'll give you a good idea of something to do. Yes, Carmen, that's a good idea. And maybe tomorrow can we also read the second chapter of the book to the girls and boys? Girls and boys, you would love that, wouldn't you? I think they would love that, Molly. All right, well, until tomorrow, girls and boys, we'll see you, and you can go and build a cubby house like Molly will, and we'll be back here to read chapter 2 tomorrow. Bye.